careers, job searching, interview prep, mock interviews, professional clothing closet. I'll touch a little bit on that later. Higher Fresno State job internship fairs. That's in the past already, but we hopefully saw you guys out there. Hopefully, I know I saw a couple of you guys out there, so that's great. And we're gonna have some more in the spring. And we also do workshops like this and webinars and presentations, of course, on various aspects of career. So come to the Career Cafe again, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's kind of like our walk-in hours. We'll have peer mentors there to help you in various areas like we've listed here. Or you can meet with your career liaison, career counseling, right? What can you do with your major? Career exploration, labor market data, career assessments. So you're doing that one-on-one counseling with a career counselor in order to see what's best for you in terms of what major you want to major in, what path you need to take, how to get internships, access to resources for career aspects. So please come check out some of our resources. And I think we'll talk about where we're located later at the end, but we're located in room 306 on the third floor of the University Student Union. And so, why do you need a resume? It should be your first impression of employers, right? So it's your first impression. So when you submit a resume, that's the first thing they're going to see. They're going to recognize that. They're not going to see a photo of you. Of course, don't put a photo on a resume. We'll touch base again on that a little bit later. But it's the first contact that they have of you about your experience, your story, your skills, your background information. It's a marketing tool, not designed to go on and on, right? Stick to one page. Do not go over more than one page. If 2 pages max, if you have really good extensive experience to show. And usually employers spend about an average of 11 to 59 seconds on your resumes, right? And so they don't take a lot of time just because they go through so many applicants. So you want to make sure you stand out on your resume. And the last thing about what you need, what is a resume is, it's the purpose to get an interview, right? The resume does not get you the job, it is the interview. So you want to make sure you get into that yes pile, right? And so that you can get an interview. And then, when that time comes, you could practice your interview to get the job. But the resume is that first impression, that first step. It's a marketing tool, right? Optimizing your resume for ATS. So if you haven't heard of what the ATS system is, it's called the applicant tracking system. It collects and analyzes resumes according to the job description. So if a resume passes the ATS system, the resume then goes onto the hands of real recruiters. So what that means is, we'll talk about it again later, but of course you want to optimize your resume. What that means is that you want to collect keywords from the job description so that it can pass through the ATS system, because the ATS system is going to scan for keywords, key phrases that highlight your skills and qualifications for the job, right? And those of you that are in the military, right, we're going to be later, we're going to be talking about how can you transform some of those translations of military skills into kind of everyday language so that you can most likely get that, whatever everyday job. Employers want applicants to match 60% on the resume, and they may filter out people with virtual interviews. So again, that just means that the ATS system is going to filter out those that don't match or don't green flag those skills on through the ATS system, and then those that do pass can be additionally added in terms of resumes, right? And then many qualified applicants may be rejected because of lack of qualifications and stuff, because the resume can't be read. And I think we have a slide later talking about the formatting of resumes and stuff like that. So you want to make sure your resume is clean so that the ATS system can read it in a very simple way so that you're, again, more likely to get through the ATS system. So how can you ensure your resume stands out? Keyword optimization. So kind of like what I said, optimize, tailor your resume with relevant keywords specific to your industry and desired role. Scan job descriptions for key phrases and incorporate them strategically throughout your resume. Do not copy and paste. So that's the big one. So again, when you're looking at a job description and stuff in the future, if they list things like, okay, if a job says leadership, communication, written, oral, or Canva design or whatever, right? You want to make sure that in your resume, but don't lie, obviously, either. Like if you haven't used Canva, don't put it on there. But if you have, then just use that, right? Literally type in Canva, right? Reflect the job description in what they want, right? And so you got to tailor that. Use the keywords there. Formatting matters. Make it clean and simple, readable formatting to ensure AI algorithms can easily parse your resume. Avoid overly complex layouts or unconventional fonts that may confuse automated systems. Avoid color or links. Essentially, just make sure that's black and white, no templates. Make sure it's readable, right? And make sure that you don't have any weird icons, no color. I know it looks pretty. I mean, it depends also on the industry, Like if you're in an art major or graphic design, you have your portfolios, and those have to be very well crafted and artful. That is the only time a resume can be, very template like, art colored. But in terms of most standard resumes, you want to keep it simple, clean, black and white. And quantify. Quantify basically just means that you want to make sure that you throw in numbers because employers love numbers. And so you want to make sure you can justify the things you did in your resume, maybe by saying, like if I was a tutor, I helped tutor students in math and English, and I saw 100% of students' grades increase. So something like that is an example of quantifying in your resume. So here's a little bit of the, two different resumes that I was talking about earlier. One's a both of these are templates. And so these are what you should not do, right? One has a photo, which you should never put on your photo. At least here in the States, the resume format should not have any photos. And you see a bunch of icons, you can see a bunch of blue all around, and there's a bunch of random spaces everywhere that don't need to be there. And you can see a lot of the rating of your skills right here. And so you don't need to do any of that. Again, it just makes it harder for the AI system to keep track of things. And it just makes it really hard for them to scan and filter out your resume if you have all these things there. So don't use a template, just start from scratch, black and white, keep it clean, kind of like what we've already mentioned. And so this is the beginning of your setup of your amazing, hopefully, survey. I mean, not survey, your resume. But again, not every resume is perfect. So that's something to look out for as well. Just do the best you can in terms of making it clean and simple that highlights your skills and qualifications for the job. Minimal, black and white, simple, clean, right? You want to have your name at the top. LinkedIn is optional. Highly recommend you do LinkedIn. Objective, you don't have to put an objective because I think that can be covered in a cover letter, but you can definitely do that as well. You have your summary of skills, education, coursework related to the job. You have your experiences, leadership skills, community service, and honors and awards and such like that. So, however you want to list it, but I would stress that education and summary of skills and qualifications go first, just because that's the main focal point. And well, your experience too, but that's one of the key phrases. Like the summary of skills is where you're going to tailor to the qualifications of the job. That summary of skills and qualifications. So this is more of what a resume you would like to use or should use when you make one. It should be clean and simple like this. And so get into the yes pile, right? Just make sure that your again, like I said, just some key things. Highlight academic work and other experiences that make you qualified applicant. Demonstrate relevant skills and achievements, represent your ability to write well, and pay close attention to detail. So again, like everything we've already said, highlight your academic work, your experience that is all relevant to the job. Make sure it's reverse chronological order. What that means is make sure what you put on your experience is reverse in terms of what's your most recent to your oldest, right? And just highlight more of the academic work experience. I mean, if you want to do internships, volunteer work, right? Remember, anything that's work experience is paid experience. And so you want to highlight all that. Demonstrate relevant skills and achievements, skills and qualifications, like what I talked about. Honors and awards, if there's anything that's relevant towards the job in terms of honors and awards. And then again, just your ability to write well and pay close attention to detail. What that means is make sure you proofread, write your resume. That shows that you represent your ability to write well and pay close attention. Because you don't want to submit a resume where there's a typo or something wrong, and that shows the employer that you did not care about paying close attention to your resume, and that may not get you into the yes pile. So you go through it a couple of times, have a friend or a family member double check your resume a few times, and just kind of do all these things to hopefully get you into that yes pile. An effective resume should target objective statement, craft a brief objective statement that speaks directly to the specific job role and company you're applying to. Highlight your relevant skills and experiences that align with the job requirements. Tell the employer what you have to offer and not what they can offer you. So that's the big one there at the end. That's probably the one of the biggest things I want you to get out of this presentation is it's about you, but not really. It's really about the employer. It's really about them. How can you offer yourself to what they want, right? So just think about that, right? And then the last thing, customized skills section, kind of like what we're talking about. Again, tailoring your skills section to emphasize those most relevant to the job, and consider rearranging and prioritizing your skills based on what the employer is seeking by using the job description. So whenever you apply for a job, they're always going to list what they want from the candidate, the skills, qualifications,
Yeah,
to
Brandon,
whatever
I
job.
think I
Oh,
believe
yes.
sorry, I believe you cut off. I wasn't sure if you want to
Oh,
like
did I? Okay. Do
yeah.
you know? Oh, when did I cut off?
You've been cutting off a little bit, so I don't know. Your Wi-Fi is a
Okay.
little
Okay.
unstable. Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Can you
Sorry,
guys hear
just
me
the
okay
last
right now
part.
or no?
I think it's just the
Okay.
last part.
Can you
Yeah.
guys hear me now? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Yeah. Please let me know. My internet might be unstable. So I was just talking about tailoring your resumes. The last part, customize section, skills section. Just make sure that in your summary of skills, just make sure that whatever is there reflects the job description. That's why it's really important that you have your summary skills earlier on in your resume, at least for me, right? But you could rearrange it in whatever way you want in terms of prioritizing. And that's how you make an effective resume, just making sure you tailor overall your resume to what the employer wants. And so that's basically the main setup of what a resume should and how you can optimize your resume, what it should be like, and the formatting, making it clean and simple. And so I'll pass it on to my colleague to take over the next section.
Okay, so basically, an effective resume should tailor accomplishments, customize your bullet points under each job, experience to showcase achievements that directly relate to the responsibilities of the target role. So make sure that you have no like paragraphs, make sure they're all bullet points. Quantify your success with numbers and metrics oh, wait whenever possible and credibility. Don't just state what you did. So basically, like I said it before, don't write paragraphs. I know a lot of people tend to like it's easy to make paragraphs to try to just do bullet points. It's more readable and just get to the point of what you've accomplished. A customized resume serves as a state testament to your dedication, attention to detail, and passion for the job and industry. Okay, wait. Can you go? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Okay, so see, some of these are the skills and qualifications that employers look for. So, for example, like problem solving. I don't know if you guys could see my mouse, but problem solving and skills, it's 88.7%. Thank you. 88.7% is what employers look for of problem solving, followed by like interpersonal skills, 58.2. So make sure we have like these type of like skills and qualifications because according to NACE, the National Association of College and Employers is like what they look for on your resume. You can go ahead. Here's other transferable skills like communication, could be like working on a team, speaking effectively, listening attentively, negotiating, interviewing. Another example of organization and management and leadership would be like time management, teaching, counseling, managing conflict. There's things like programming, setting goals, identifying problems, defining needs, other stuff like human relations, motivating, cooperating, listening, being sensitive, and so on and so forth. These are some great examples of them. So some translation of the framework. For example, role would be function. Oh, wait, is it role function? Role function skill impact. Or like civilian phrasing. Think about plain language. And then adding numbers like budget, people, time, and volume. Context would be what changed, who benefited. And then here are some military and civilian phrases that you could use. Um, For example, like if you were a squad leader, you could put team shift, team lead, and shift supervisor. If you're a platoon sergeant, you could be like program lead slash operations supervisor. You could put either or. For like signal and Com, comms could be system support and network technician, or courtsman and medic. You could put clinical technician, patient care associate, something in that sort. Aviation crew, you could put aircraft, sorry, aircraft maintenance technician. And then some of the relevant coursework. Um, Brandon, can you use the mouse real quick? Thank you. So basically, you're gonna want to write, make sure you write California State University, comma Fresno, not Fresno State, because that's not our name. It's California State University Fresno. You could put Fresno State on there. It's up to you. That's optional, like the parentheses. And then, for example, you want to put your bachelor of what you're getting. So, Bachelor of Science in Business Admin, and then you could put like management, or you could put what is the other one? Well, like accounting. Accounting's another one. Just depending on what you're getting your bachelor. And then make sure you put the month and then the year, or you could just put the year, but make sure it's like all of the same. So if you have month and year, make sure it's month and year, or not just year and then say the next one will be like month and year. So it just makes sure if everything's like very nice and organized all the way to your right side. And then for the relevant coursework, you could put like introduction to intern I'm sorry, my voice is like out. Internship, opportunity assessment, labor relations. These are like some great ones. Admin of personal, stuff like that. And then experience with work, volunteer, and leadership. Remember that experience is not always paid work, just like Brandon had said earlier. Remember, any experience that you always do, make sure you put it on there as well. Divide the qualifications with great titles. He works well with chronicle order, and here are some titles that you could use for this area. So you could use field experience if you have any, volunteer experience, professional experience, related experience, work experience, leadership experience, community service. So these are some great titles that you could use for this area. And then when it comes to formatting the resume, make sure it's reverse chronicle order. Be consistent with formatting. Limit to 1 page. 2 pages acceptable with significant experience related to the job that you're hiring or what you're applying to. Use action verbs like present job equals present tense, past job equals past tense. Bullets, make sure we do bullets, not paragraphs, even though we try to tend to do paragraphs, try to do bullet points. Quantify whenever possible and value the work that you have done. So, composing your experiences bullet points. So, what duties did I perform? And then you should like you could write a paragraph, or write a paragraph answer, but in bullet points. And then you could edit the bullet points and use action verbs and be specific to skills. So some of the action verbs that you could use was like design, created, or initiated, edited, modified, resolved in your bullet points. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Julie. So I'll be taking over for a bit for now. So if you guys have heard, I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but this is the what's, why, and how model. So this is just a way for you to formulate these bullet points. So what did you do, right? So what was the role that you did, or what did you do during the job? Why did you do it? Why did you do this task, or why did you fold papers, right? It's something, right? How did you do it? How did you manage that task? And then what were the results, right? So this is something that we have here at the Career Center as well. So we have these documents. You could always find this on our front page. Um, so let's say, for example, in the original bullet point, it says tutored students, right? Rather than just putting I tutored students, you could put tutored students in math and English, right? So what did you do? You did math and English for the students. Why did you do them? You did it to help improve their grades. How did you do it? Using a variety of methods to adjust different learning styles. And then the results of that, you saw an improvement over a 3-month period in 100% students. So with these four, what, why, how, and what were the results, you finally get your final bullet point. Um, your final bullet point being tutored students in math and English using a variety of methods to adjust different learning styles, resulting in overall grade improvement in 100% of students over a 3-month period. So that bullet point gives you a much of a bigger, stronger detail orientation of what you did versus your original bullet point of just tutored students. So you could always use this model. This is a really good model for when you're formulating these bullet points on your skills and qualifications on your job. And we'll go on over some examples right now in a few.
Yeah, and really quickly before we go on, I would like to add something really quickly with this, if I may. Um, so the what, why, how result model. Also thinking about in terms of military, how you translate these experiences from your military experience. So just answer in terms of the language, right? I mean, we talked about some of the examples of if depending on what your title was, you make that into civilian terms. So when you're thinking about, okay, well, how do I make my bullet points civilian-like? Because my military experiences are not that of the same. And
Mhm.
so thinking about, okay, how do I make this more in plain language, right? And stuff like that from your military experience, fitting into the what did you do in your military position? Why did you do it, right? What task were you assigned essentially is what that's why asking what were you assigned by your, sergeant or whoever was your boss, right? How did you do it, right? And what were the results of that assignment, right? Or that task that you were assigned to do in your service, right? And so thinking about those things and thinking about what skills did you pull from, right, to match that job description. Think about communication skills, leadership skills, active listening skills. Those are soft skills, but you do computer skills, right? Technical skills, right? Maybe programming, operations, all those kinds of things. We talked about comms earlier, right? What radio, what kind of tech did you deal with, right? All those kinds of things. So translating all that into these sections based off of the title of your position and translating into those everyday kind of terms, right? So just maybe thinking about that in terms of creating those really strong bullet points, the what, high, wow, and result. And the last thing I'll say really quickly too is that sometimes your job does not have all the four. So what I mean by that is sometimes there's a what, there's a why, a how, maybe there was no result, or maybe there was a what, how, and the result, but there's not really a why. The why is difficult because the why is just like, well, it's my job. I was just doing my job. And so just thinking about the tests again that you're performing and stuff. So maximize as much of the what, why, how result model as much as you can in terms of your military skills and translating that into everyday language in terms of, let's say if I was working on radios, right, for the military, right? So you would have to translate that to, right, what did you do? And, function or prepared, right? Radio equipment, right? Or something like that, right? So just making it that everyday language is really the strong thing in terms of translating these military skills into these really good bullet points, just using that everyday language that match that job. Yeah. And then like Carlos said, you could find this on our career website. It's essentially on the 24/7 resources homepage. There's a career success guide that has it all.
I kind of went over this one already, so we could go on to the next
Oh,
one.
right, that's right.
Yeah. So these are some military skills to think about that you can add onto your resume. So much like Brandon and Julie had said, you guys definitely have leadership. You have leadership skills. So you could, rather than just saying you have leadership skills, you could use that what, why, how model and make it more adaptable and more oriented to go into demonstrate strong leadership abilities through effective decision making, mentorship, and strategic planning under pressure. So these are kind of some skills that you could go from your military background and adding it into the resume. And much like Brandon said, sometimes these skills you feel are just military based, but you could orientate it and change it in a way where it's more applicable to jobs. Um, so your proven ability to be highly organized and detail oriented with the ability to manage complex schedules, prioritize tasks, and coordinate resources to meet mission objectives, right? Um, you guys are adapted to staying calm under pressure, so that's a skill that a lot of jobs kind of need as well, in multiple places because there's a huge amount of pressure and chaos at works. So having that patience and having that calm allows to show as well as your character. So these are some really good skills that you could also have and just add onto your resume. Um, I know my colleague Julie had also mentioned, and then Brandon as well. It's good to always look at this job description and try to see some skills that that job is looking for, and having those skills and adding it onto your resume. So if they're looking for leadership skills, tailor leaders, add the leadership skills onto your resume. Cool. And so we're gonna go over just a few more examples of just how to compose your experiences, right? So this one's, one about nursing. So if you guys were probably medic and stuff, these are some skills you could probably add as well. I know you're probably not assisting the residents, but you're assisting military personnel. You're assisting other people um within the military system. Some people first teachers. So I like how Julie had mentioned as well earlier. Specify when you can with quantity numbers. So this elementary school teacher was second grade, but she also quantified 28 students. So it wasn't just saying randomly just students, but it also specified how many students they worked with. Okay. So again, these are some other ones. So animal care volunteer. And then they talked about over 40-week semi-feral cats. It also talks about the time, right? It was a 40-week period. Um, these are just some ways to put the bullet points. They don't have to be super detailed sometimes. Sometimes they could be straight to forward to the point. Like this one was just walked, brushed, and socialized pet, and then played with over 35 cats and dogs. Again, they're quantifying, and just like much how they have summer 2020 or summer 20 something whenever they finish that job, just make sure you have your start date or end date. If you're currently on there, you could just put the date and then currently. You don't have to just leave it. But it shows that just make sure you have them both showing the months and it stays consistent.
And sorry, another thing I want to add really quickly.
Hmm.
About the dates is also, yeah, make sure it can stay consistent. So you could do it March, the month in the year, or you could do the numbers, like you could do 05 to 07, right? 2020 something, right? So it's just making sure you stay consistent though, throughout your formatting. That's the most important part in terms of dates. And just making sure that you do reverse chronological order. So do what's most recent first to least. That's relevant to the job description of your experiences and skills. And don't do anything more than I would say 5 years. That's what we've been told. 5 years, maybe even 10 years, but around 5 years. Because the further you go, the harder it is to really, match that. If you want to go more than 5 years, you can in terms of putting that experience on there, but you have to make sure that experience that's more than 5 years is relevant to the job. If it's not, then you want to do something a lot the things that are more recent these past few years. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're composing your experiences, thinking about what's most recent, what's relevant experience that matches the job. Is it too far out of date, right? And then if it is, does it relate to what I'm applying for? So that's something else I wanted to additionally add about composing your resumes or not your resume, your experiences.
Yeah. And so if you've done internships, adding internships is a good thing. If you've done volunteer work, add your volunteer work experience as well. It doesn't have to always be work. It could be even club organizations that you've been a part of, maybe some mentorship programs you've been a part of. You could always add these onto your resumes. And much like Julie had said as well, with relevant coursework, having your coursework is also an experience that you could add onto your resume. Um, don't always think it has to be paid. It doesn't have to be paid to be on your resume. Um, so being an intern, having volunteer experience, as well as long as you list, the time and date, you're listing the same skills and qualifications that you did, your duties, how did you do them, why did you do them? Um, just back to that ex example that we did, and yeah, make sure you just add them. So I will always say most relevant though. So let's say you volunteered. At a church working with students, but you're also applying as a teacher, that's kind of experience that's tied in because you're still working with students, right? So just make sure it's always things most relevant to the job. Um, I know Brendan and Julie had said 2 pages is allowed, but we want to make sure that those, even if it's 2 pages, that they're still all relevant and you feel are most those skills are connecting most to that job or most applicable to it.
And sorry, I want to add something else really
Hmm.
quickly too. So in terms of military, right? And so thinking about for you, you would have to like kind of like what Carlos already mentioned, section off your experiences. So leadership experience, internship, volunteer work experience. So for you, whatever your military role was, whether that was leadership experience, were you the leader, platoon leader or something, were you managing something, or you could put other experience, right, or related experience, right, and that could be where other roles that you had in the military that don't maybe quite fit the general title of the position, but it still has relevant skills and qualification that you learn in that job that relate to the job. So just thinking about relabeling and sectioning those off as accurate as best as possible that relate to the military and for the job. And then of course thinking about, remember, like what we, like Julie talked about at the beginning, the different types of different titles you can translate to your everyday language, right? Platoon leader to team lead, all those kinds of things, right? And then putting that into these sections of experience.
So I know Julie had also mentioned this before. It's okay to write your paragraphs at first, but when it comes to transferring it to the resume, make sure that it's in bullet points. So I know sometimes it's easier to help yourself to write a paragraph. So if that's easier, write a paragraph, on a piece of paper or on a different document, and then go from your paragraph and translate it into bullet points. So it's okay to do paragraphs, just not on your resume. Maybe do it on the side on a different document just to help formulate and create an your bullet points for your resume. So I know sometimes it's easier to write the paragraph, so just make sure you write it on a different document, and then afterwards you transfer it from a paragraph into the bullet points onto your resume. Again, still using that, the what, why, how model. And like much like Brandon and Julie had said, transferring, changing your title names from what you did, and just transferring the skills and qualifications, and relevant skills that you feel are most adaptable for that job. Okay, and just again, some cool quick resume tips. Just proofread your resume and have it, proofread by others. There's not such thing as a perfect resume. Resumes are different in everyone's eyes. So maybe Brandon adds some things to your resume. Maybe Julie has another thing that she likes and adds it in. So it's more about just trying to get some feedback. And it's very important to proofread because let's say you write down that you're pretty good at communications and you have detail and you're amazing at grammar. You put grammar skills, but then your resume has grammar issues. That's showing contradiction right there. It kind of shows that you don't really have that grammar skills. So you want to make sure that you proofread it, it's all consistent, it looks good, it looks neat. Not only that, but that will help it get through the ATS system, like like Brandon had mentioned earlier. Write about the compliments and not just job description. So sometimes people just write what they did, maybe write down an accomplishment that came out of that. Show that passion as well, show that you're passionate about it. Kind of shows a little bit more of that skill. And then formatting isn't easy, so if you need help, we do have the writing center as well, that could help you as well. If you guys just got to go in there for a quick little grammar check, or you could always bring it in to us in the center. We have people here, mentors that could look over your resume just to make sure. As mentioned earlier, limited to one page. Two is fine if it's very much necessary, but try to keep it to one page. And stay professional on there. Make sure you're using proper proper professionalism, almost as if you're writing an email to your professor, or writing an email to CEO, something about that. I know you guys, military personnel, you guys have professionalism, so yeah, just keep it professional on your resume. So, we have email addresses. It's the same thing about keep professional, whether you write an email address, whether you're doing voice messages to employers, even social media sites, if you somehow reach out to them, make sure it's also professional on there. And again, tailor and phrase the keywords from the job posting onto your resume. So like I said earlier, if they're looking for leadership, add leadership on your resume. If they're looking for someone who's detail oriented, have detail oriented in your skills or qualifications. But again, write it out using the what, how model. And just elaborate a bit more.
Yeah, and one thing I want to quickly talk about too is the email addresses where staying professional, don't put like your person, if your emails like the tagline is really not professional, don't put it. I've actually recommend that honestly when you are start looking for jobs in the future, make honestly like another account, like a separate just other account. Oops, sorry. Just another account just strictly for jobs, like professional account. Just make a professional account. Just make another Google account just for job searching, applying for jobs, all those kinds of things. It'll help you also one, stay organized, And two, just to maintain that sense of professionalism with employers. And I think it just overall makes it easier for you to kind of manage filtering out, the jobs and the rejections and the interviews and whatever else comes on when you eventually apply for a job in the future. So that's a tip that you can do. And just again, making sure that email tagline, just make sure that stays professional as well. And social media sites like LinkedIn and all those things, using that as your focal point, right? And make sure that stays professional, that highlights your professional and academic career, right? So making sure that those are at the forefront of your social media in terms of mostly LinkedIn, of course.
And if you got any questions for us, but this is our office hours, so from 8 to 5 p.m. And then Monday to Friday are walk-ins, so 9 to 3 p.m. We also have coffee up in the front and some snacks for you. But if you just need a quick little resume check or have any questions, just come on in. We're located on the third floor of the USU, so Panda Express, third floor, room 306. That's our number. And if you have any questions, you could go and also email us at careers@csu.fresno.edu. And yeah.
I think we have
Thank
some
you.
stuff in
Oh,
the chat.
thank you guys so
Oh,
much
that's for
too
the jury.
for presenting for us. I really appreciate it. Also, any students that are here right now, if you could follow the link that I provided in the chat and then just fill out that survey so we could get you for attendance. So thank you for that.
Cool.
And thank you guys again. I really appreciate you guys for coming out.
Yeah, thank you for
Yeah,
having
of
us. It was
course. Yeah.
it was an honor. Any questions? Anybody have any questions or comments or any last
And
things?
if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, or you could just unmute yourself and ask. And if you don't have any questions, then feel free to either reach out to me or you can reach out to the Career Development Center.
Yeah, I had a quick question. I don't know if it was mentioned in the presentation, but what is a general rule of thumb when you're writing the resume? Like, how many bullet points should you add when you're talking about the skills that you learned from like the job position that you were in?
Good question.
It's
I don't know how my other colleagues want to jump in here and
yeah.
if they agree with what I say, but good question. I would say as many as you need that highlight your skills that's relevant. I mean, obviously, you don't want your entire half of your resume to be filled up with the bullet points in the summary and skills section. There's no like general rule in terms of, oh, you only should always only have 5 bullet points for your skills and summary. No, there's no general rule in terms of how many bullet points you need to have, but you don't want a lot, right? You don't want to have like 10 bullet points that take up half the page because remember, you want to highlight other things that also matter in terms of helping you get that interview to help you get that job. And so, 5 is good. I mean, 3 to 5, 6, 7, right? Again, it just depends on that amount in terms of if you can list skills that are super relevant or that match the job description. If you go a couple, then that's fine, right? Because that's really what it is that it's important, right? I just wouldn't do too much. I just don't want to do too much, right? Just thinking about space. Thinking about space. Remember, resume is 1 page. So again, there's no general rule of how many there should be, but I usually like to recommend around 5 or so, right? That way it gives you a good amount to highlight whatever matches the job and make sure that you still have a lot of space to do other things, right? And sometimes, again, just looking at the job description, what kind of qualification skills are they asking of you? If they list a lot of things in the job that you can put in your skills section, then match that, right? Just match some of that, right? Or combine them into like one bullet point because some of them can be combined, right? So thinking about ways you can kind of navigate that skills section, right, to make sure that you highlight all the things you need to match that job description. So whether that's going to be a few more bullet points or you're going to combine a couple bullet points, right? So again, because it's all about thinking about space and all those things, what you have, what you don't have, right? There are other things to highlight that are important for the job too, like education. A lot of jobs want masters. You got to highlight that stuff too, right? And then the experiences and then any other awards if that's relevant to the job. And so just thinking about all that kind of stuff, right? Again, it can go into 2 pages. So if you have extensive experience that's relevant, so if everything you have is super relevant to this job, then yeah, kind of go all out if you need to, put as much as you would like, because everything is relevant. So you want to make sure your chances of getting an interview are higher. But no, there's no general rule of thumb of how many bullet points you need to have in the skill sections, at least for me. It just depends on what the job is asking of you, what you can say in the skill section. But I usually like to just do a couple, like maybe like 5 or so, like I said.
Mhm. And I'll also add on just sometimes some students write bullet points and some of them kind of repeat the same thing. Maybe try to just eliminate ones that kind of feel a little repetitive if they're mentioning the same skill, just because you want to, like Brandon said, you want to have more space and save some space for maybe other jobs that you have or other volunteer experiences, and then adding those ones as well.
Thank you. That was very helpful. I guess just to have like a follow-up question, is it okay on the resume to um basically only highlight two job positions that you think will speak of you as a as a qualified person? If you only focus on two job positions and you kind of break it down more in detail, or is that something that I should stay away from doing?
Wait, can you say that for me again, Joanna?
Yes, so if you focus on the resume on highlighting two specific job roles,
Mm-hmm.
and then you basically like write it down in details without being repetitive, I guess just to show that you're a qualified person for the job. Is that something that is still okay to do within a resume?
It depends on if that job is really relevant to the job, then maybe yes. If those between those two jobs, as if it's relevant, yes. I mean, if it's the experiences, right, of that job really relate to the job and you think it's gonna really get you that interview, yeah, that's fine. But you want to distinguish some other levels, right? In terms of what different aspects you learned from, what did you take? I mean, we looked at the why, the what, the how, and the result model, right? And so you got to pull out different things from those positions. But if they're really relevant to the job, then I think that's fine, right? But also thinking about how much space you have, what else you want to highlight. So it's a bunch of different things. But yeah, you can. It just depends on how you want to match the job, right? And distinguishing the two, the positions and all those things. So
Yeah.
looking at, that model and looking at what you can pull from, right? And also from the job description. It's always about the job description. It is about you, what you can bring to the table, but it's more about how do you cater to them in terms of, what do they look for and how can you match that?
Yeah. And just like much like Brandon said, maybe if they're looking for someone who's a team player, someone that's a leader, or someone that's detail oriented, make sure you have those skills somewhat, and your skills, either your skills and qualification area or in your job description areas where you're talking about your job and what you did.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for all the great questions. All good questions.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, if there's not any more questions, then we could just wrap it up here. And then yeah, thank you guys again. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for having us. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Have a good one,
Thank
guys.
you.
You guys all
Have a good
one.
day.